What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be diving deep into the Akimbo Akitas, and this is the reward for this week's weekly challenges in Black Ops 7. And with these, they're quite interesting. Not only can we now use this full auto shotgun in Akimbo, so one gun in each hand, but now we have effectively an infinite magazine capacity, but if you hold the trigger down for too long, the guns will overheat. So it's kind of like the belt fed mod on an LMG, for instance. And this was immediately quite concerning, as something like this could have a very big negative impact on the game. The single Akimbos are already quite powerful, so just imagining two of those in your hands sounds like it could be game-breaking. That's what we're going to be finding out in today's video. We're going to dive deep and compare the single Akita versus this new Akimbo attachment. And taking a look at the basics with the pros and cons in the menu. For the pros, we have dual wield as well as the belt-fed ammo capacity, and we've already kind of talked about that. For cons, on the other hand, we have the ability to overheat if we hold the trigger down for too long, and we'll look at the timings and everything on that in just a little bit. It also very significantly harms our hipfire spread. In the menus, it's literally doubling our hipfire spread, so that's pretty crazy to see, and it's going to make it much less likely that you're going to hit your shot, because you also can't aim down sight with this, since you have one gun in each hand. But then on top of that, it reduces our damage and damage range, and it increases the amount of recoil we experience with the gun. So a lot of downsides attached to this. And let's take a deep look at the hipfire spread adjustment. As we said, in the menu, it literally doubled our maximum hipfire spread. And that's the maximum value you'll see when standing and firing your gun. However, another key thing to consider here, like I said, is the fact that if you're using the single Akita, you can aim down sight. And when you aim down sight with shotguns in this game, it tightens your spread. And we can see here, when you've got an enemy at 10 meters, with a single Akita, even if you're just standing still, there's a good chance you're going to be missing a lot of your pellets. However, aiming down sight can tighten that up really nicely and make it far more likely that you're going to be hitting multiple pellets, and therefore reduce the number of shots it's actually going to take you to kill. However, hilariously, this is what it looks like when using Akimbo. Not only does it eliminate the ability to have an aim down sight spread, our minimum hipfire spread is now noticeably larger than our previous maximum spread while firing. So at this point, it's possible you're not even going to be hitting a pellet at all, even if the enemy is perfectly centered, just due to the inherent randomness. And then our maximum spread when firing the guns is just ridiculously high. And therefore, it's a complete guessing game as to whether or not you'll even hit that player at 10 meters. So we can already see this is a massive downside to using Akimbo. Of course, there are attachments that can help you tighten this back up a little bit, but you're never going to be able to get even close to as good as the base Akita without any attachments equipped. So even ignoring any damage range adjustments, which we're going to be looking at next, just considering this spread change and the fact that we can't aim down sight to tighten it even more, means that this is going to be far less consistent than a single Akita. Speaking of ranges though, let's have a look at the range comparison here, because this is also quite a big difference. As we can see here, with the single Akita, we can hit our target out to about 24 meters. Anything beyond that, you can't even hit the target. And at that range, it's going to take you at least 4 shots to kill, often more than 4, but that's like the bare minimum. Then we have a 3-shot kill potential if we're getting our spread tightened up enough at 12 meters. And then our 2-shot kill potential, if we're hitting all our pellets, can extend out to about 6 meters. It is worth noting though, with the single Akita, even if we're point blank range and hit every single pellet, there is no 1-shot kill potential with this gun in core game modes. Now, with the Akimbo Akita, this is what our ranges look like. As we can see, we can't even hit our target beyond 14 meters. So that's already a significant reduction in our ability to even deal damage to the enemy player. And then in those longer ranges, while we technically have the damage potential to have a 4-shot kill, you're never going to see that happen with how wide our hipfire spread is. In fact, it's often going to take you more than 7 shots to kill if you're stretching those ranges out beyond 10 meters with that, which is laughably bad. Then our 3-shot kill potential is only about 4 meters with this. And that requires a little bit of luck as well as far as hitting your pellets. And our 2-shot kill range is about 1.8, 1.9 meters based on my testing. However, keep in mind, this is per gun, so technically that's like its 1-shot kill range if you're firing both guns at the same time. You can get effectively a 1-shot kill out to that range, but again, that does rely a little bit on your pellet luck as well. So we can see here, this is another area where the Akimbo is performing significantly worse than the base gun. But of course, keep in mind, we're able to fire 2 guns at once. And with those areas covered, let's get into some more of the details on the overheat with the Akimbo attachment, which doesn't apply to the single gun at all. And I guess just a quick note there as well, most Akimbo guns in this game have a new mechanic for Call of Duty that allows you to swap between a single gun and akimbo on the fly by pressing left on the D-pad. I don't know what it would be on mouse and keyboard. It is worth noting you can't do that with the Akimbo Akitas. If you're using this attachment, you're stuck in akimbo no matter what. And with this, if you hold down the trigger non-stop until it overheats, you can fire 15 shots per gun and then it will overheat. Now, obviously, if you take pauses in between that, then you can end up firing more shots before you end up fully overheating. And you can watch your overheat meter, obviously, in the center of your screen. But if you do overheat these, it's going to take you a total of 4.25 seconds before your gun is usable again. And that's quite a long time in Call of Duty terms. That's like an LMG reload time. Whereas just comparing that to the base Akita, the single Akita with the standard 12-round magazine capacity, we can obviously fire 12 continuous rounds without overheating the gun because there is no overheat. And then when we need to reload, it only takes 1.82 seconds, which is significantly faster than that overheat time. So if you aren't managing your overheats properly, you're actually going to be punished quite a bit more than you would be if you were just reloading your magazine. So obviously you want to try to avoid reaching that level where you actually overheat your guns. And then another factor you probably have noticed is your reserve ammo when using akimbo is 100 shells per gun. And so when you first spawn into the game, you have 200 rounds to spare if you're using akimbo, whereas with the single standard Akita using the base magazine, you only get 36 rounds total, including the magazine that's in the gun when you spawn. So that is one big upside to using this akimbo attachment, is your total ammo count at spawn is significantly higher. And it is worth noting that can be replenished with munitions boxes as well as scavenger packs. Now, with all of that in mind, there's actually one other downside that isn't mentioned when looking at the pros and cons, but you will see it if you pull up the advanced stats. When using this akimbo attachment, it also harms our sprint out time from 160 milliseconds up to 200 milliseconds. And sprint out time is very important for shotguns. So that is yet another downside attached to this. And with all of that in mind, I do want to share what I consider to be the best setup if you are going to be using the akimbo attachment on this gun. With this, for our muzzle, we're going to be using the Fang modified choke, which helps with our hipfire spread, and you want to improve that as much as possible since it's so terrible with this akimbo attachment on. We're also going to be using the light pad strike barrel, and the reason behind this is it helps our handling stats and, most importantly, our sprint out time, and we want to get that value as low as possible with a shotgun. This one just helps more than the long barrel or even the damage barrel, in my experience. You're just better off with this one. Then for our rear grip, we have the Pioneer Blaze grip, which is the one that helps with sprint out time, and that's needed as much as possible with this, especially since we're harming that value with the akimbo attachment. Then, of course, we have the akimbo attachment itself, and then finally, we're topping this off with the EAM Scatterline Laser, which is going to be helping with our hipfire spread as well. That one's a must-have if you're using this. And in my experience and based on my testing, that's the best you're going to get with the akimbo attachment. However, I do want to mention using incendiary may be useful in some scenarios. You will see some kill trades take place, but it will sometimes allow you to get certain kills that you wouldn't get otherwise. However, it does also reduce our damage range, and you have to wait for burn damage to take place to get the full potential out of that, which again, like I said, that can lead to kill trades. So I'm actually not a fan of incendiary, but I do want to point out that it's not totally unusable, and if you want to use incendiary, I would probably drop the barrel in exchange for it. And with all of that covered, I just wanted to share my thoughts on this attachment. As I'm sure many of you felt, when I first saw this, I was definitely concerned about the potential power of this. I was worried this was going to take over multiplayer. After testing it and using it for myself though, I don't feel that way at all. I think this is actually significantly worse than the base single Akita. I would much rather use that gun on its own. I find it to be far more consistent, as well as just far more effective. And therefore, at least in my eyes, I see this akimbo attachment as a pure gimmick. It doesn't mean it might not be fun to use at times, just for a different way to play and a change of pace, but I'm not really concerned about this attachment at all. I think it's actually pretty bad, and you're better off with a single Akita. Now, of course, those are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this akimbo attachment in those comments down below. Do you guys agree with me? Do you think this is generally worse than the single Akita? Or do you think it's actually better? Do you think this is actually quite good? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.